Hello again.
Hello again. Hello again.
Hi, everybody. It's Sunday, and we've been noticing some things.
That Adam isn't here, or he's been transformed into a unicorn.
What do we call him?
Muhammad, the
Muslim
transgender
unicorn.
Muslim unicorn.
So,
Trans species actually identifies as human. So I titled the show. I mean, there are lots of things to talk about, but in the American Twitter sphere, it's all a rage because Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes, which was a surprise because those two were like calling each other feds and all other sorts of names until like last week. Although not to any significant degree, like.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't some kind of all-out flame war or anything like
No,
that. Tucker
no.
doesn't engage in that. He said on the show with, who was the show with? Was it with Candace? Whoever his show was, where he said that, whoever he was interviewing, he said that he thought that Nick Fuentes was, he called him just some kid in the basement because, I think it was it Candace? I don't know.
Maybe.
Whoever he was interviewing was telling him that Nick Fuentes was kind of like throwing shade at him. So he just throw a bit of shade back, pretty much. And that was it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly, and Tucker doesn't get involved in that kind of stuff, you know.
No, but that is the Troll King's way. Nick Fuentes has partly risen to prominence by
well, of course he's
annoying everyone.
Exactly, he's throwing shit at everybody. So like, if you get shit thrown at you by Nick Fuentes, like you're like, whoa, surprise.
You should be worried if you haven't.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is interesting that Carlson said at the top of his show when he introduced him, that, look, the fact is you are becoming more and more prominent. So I thought I should talk to you. I mean, so many other people are, or if they're not because they're scared to, they're talking about you. It's been noticed all summer long that the man is banned from YouTube since a decade. But what's been happening is fans of his are clipping his long independent shows over on Rumble, and they go viral in their own right, the clips on YouTube and TikTok and elsewhere and X. So everyone sees him all the time anyway. It's like, who is this guy, you know? So in a sense, he is the news. That's usually, I don't like that about people when they make themselves the news rather than the medium or the means to which information can get out or topics can be discussed. But it's part of it's inseparable from Nick Fuentes because he's styled himself as this taboo breaker who will say anything and everything. And is he kidding or is he serious? He leaves you all guessing, you know. But the people who watch his shows, long form shows, get to see when he's actually serious. So what does he really believe anyway? So he goes on Tucker, and Tucker is, you know, he likes to shoot the shit himself, but on this show he was focused. Like, what do you actually believe? Anyway, we're not even going to talk about that per se.
But
people can do that if they want. What's interesting is the reaction to this.
Well, it's ridiculous. The reaction is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's extremely insane.
But everything today is ridiculous. None of it makes any sense. None of it's rational, and it's ridiculous. Like you scroll through, you know, even on YouTube or something, you see, you know, different videos. Well, not even as a result of his interview with Tucker, but the dangerous rise of Nick Fuentes, and you know, who is Nick Fuentes, and this person reacts to Tucker Carlson's Nick Fuentes interview, and Tim Pool has a show up for a few days ago. Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson show sparks backlash. Conservatives furious over platform, and I'm like, do people having a conversation? What kind of world do we live in?
Yeah.
What kind of shit show is this? What kind of bullshit, retarded reality is this we live in, where that is actually like something that what am I meant to get furious about it? It's somebody who gets furious about stuff like that,
right?
And what are they furious about?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't say in the headline, but what are they furious about? Why would anybody be Why would there be a backlash, and why would conservatives, according to Tim Pool, be furious over Tucker Carlson platforming Nick Fuentes? Why?
Because he's a raging racist, Nazi, anti-Semite.
Yeah, but he's not.
He's not. Narrative. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so I can call anybody. I mean,
exactly. What's disappointing? You're looking at social media titles, which are clickbaiting themselves. What's disappointing about those, to a T, is that they're aping corporate MSM, because that's what they've been doing. I don't know who's on first. Maybe they're just both spontaneously doing it.
Well, that's how you get clicks.
What I was noticing, you're noticing that kind of stuff on social media. In the mainstream media, it's the same. It's just not wall-to-wall. They don't introduce Fuentes too casually to normies.
No, they're not talking about him at all.
But they have Jerusalem Post had a full spread review of the interview in English, but still, that's Israeli press.
Jerusalem Post.
Washington Post, New York Times. It's all BBC, The Guardian. So they're introducing the topic and why it should never be listened to or ignored.
The BBC is covering Nick Fuentes.
They had something on it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe they avoid mentioning him in the title. Tucker Carlson interviews anti-Semite or something like that. Just to give you, so the media, social media, but it's also the big names. So I opened X yesterday, and I swear, just the way it happened to unfold, and just begin scrolling, and I had one journalist, Lara Logan, kind of alternative these days, but her background is CBS and CNN, and three politicians, all commenting on it.
Yeah.
So they're mainstream GOP, rhino type, conservative, corporate conservative America, bashing Tucker / using the same old tropes, if that's what they are, we can call them that, about Nick Fuentes. I'm
not saying
one after the other. So what I was noticing that the backlash was your normie type bigwigs. Just the fact that they were aware it happened and all uniformly attacking the fact that it happened. The main target, though, if anything, would be Tucker Carlson. He's really there. It's really who they're gunning for here. Nick Fuentes, in a sense, he's easy target because he himself has leaned into the criticism that he's a raging anti-Semite. He larps and trolls about it because he's part of a generation that just doesn't care about that anymore.
Well, they shouldn't, because it's ridiculous. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Hasn't for a long time. Just a slur used against people to shut them up because Israel or whoever supports Israel doesn't like what you're saying, so they call you a name. May as well. It's synonymous with poopy head. It literally means the same. Anti-Semitism at this point literally means you're a poopy head. You may as well literally say the same thing.
If these people, I'm talking here about the newspaper editors.
By the way,
broadcasters.
The BBC haven't deemed to cover it yet at all. There's no record of the BBC using his name.
Okay.
At all. New York Times, yes. Yahoo, he's on Yahoo News and stuff. And in fact, it's all about him entering the MAGA mainstream, right? The Atlantic has an article titled "The Firewall Against Nick Fuentes is Crumbling."
That's from who?
The Atlantic.
Atlantic, okay. That's a revealing title, no? That there is a firewall. Oh, yeah. Maybe they're speaking metaphorically, but whatever. They suggest that...
Everybody knows there is. Nick Fuentes, that's what he spent half of his interview with Tucker Carlson talking about.
Yeah.
That he's been censored, basically, for a long time. Or was censored for a long time. It's only now that he's kind of grown up, I suppose, but dropped his groiper, larper attitude a little bit and is maybe making a little bit more sense to the point that someone like Tucker Carlson would actually interview him and expect to actually be able to have a relatively straightforward question and answer session with him without him descending into some kind of groiper type verbal shit posting.
Yeah. I'm Pepe the Frog. I'm the king. I'm the emperor.
Or stuff like that.
All this ego thing. Anyway, just a little bit about his story. I've heard it a few times now because he's also given it to Candace and a few other, maybe Jimmy Dore, or did he do that? Anyway, it's about the third time I've heard his origin story of what happened to him and how, as the Atlantic put it, he was firewalled.
Mm-hmm.
It's consistent, and it's interesting because he was going to get a part-time gig while he was in his first year of college,
Mm-hmm.
writing articles and maybe hosting a show or appearing on a show for
Mm-hmm.
RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network. Small, but maybe people have heard of them. And in conversations, presumably by email or in group chats or whatever, when he's asking about Israel, innocently enough, and funding and prioritizing American foreign policy,
Mm-hmm.
he's getting pushback, and you shouldn't be asking questions in that way. Anyway, the interesting thing is that the first turn of the screws apparently comes from the Daily Wire, which he wasn't working for.
Mm-hmm.
So the Daily Wire is ostensibly a separate organization,
Mm-hmm.
and they can get RSBN, not the same company, to not only not work with him, but thereafter he doesn't work for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most interesting part of that, because in a sense, his experience is his evidence. It's what underpins and informs when he's serious, and you can actually make sense of his case,
Mm-hmm.
what he's trying to say. It's extraordinary influence, concentrated power,
Well,
highly networked.
When he mentions that the Daily Wire was able to get the network that he was actually employed by to basically fire him. Well, we all know who the Daily Wire is run and owned by. So there you go.
We?
Huh?
Do we?
Yeah.
You're thinking of Ben Shapiro.
I'm thinking of Israel Firsters.
Yes, but do you know who they are?
Huh?
I've mentioned it on the show before, but Ben Shapiro is most anonymous.
Jeremy Boring, yeah.
Nope. Jeremy Boring might be involved, but the two...
He conceived of it.
The seed money was two Texas brothers. I'll get the name. I'd have to look it up. Two Texas brothers were Christian, but they're not Jews. Evangelical types. And they have a very interesting background.
Dan and Ferris Wilkes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And they're super interesting.
They're oil men.
Oil men. They provided the seed money for the Daily Wire. Maybe they're not still the major investors. I don't know. But the Wilkes brothers, they're Israel Firsters in a way you couldn't even... Their father was booted from an early 20th century Church of Christ, which sounds ultra-Christian, right? Probably was. He was booted because he was going around telling the congregation that not only basically that Jesus Christ Christianity is the real Judaism. Mm-hmm. We're not only so close to Judaism and we ought to be Judaism, we are the Jews. Mm-hmm. They found this just to be a bit too extreme. Mm-hmm. And he was booted. That's the upbringing of the two guys who founded or at least funded Daily Wire. So it's a classic case of where it's not as simple as people might take from what Fuentes is banging on about, that it's the tribe and it's all about that is definitely at play. What's good for Jewish interests is what works for them, but it's more than that. There's a huge mass of people in the United States, untold millions, and they certainly outnumber Israelis and certainly outnumber even Jews globally, and they are Christian Zionists, and a lot of them are nuts, and they really believe either that they're more Jewish than the Jews, or that the Jews are their willing pawns for their own ends.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about Israel Firsters. Like, I'm not just talking about Jewish people.
Yeah,
talking about the whole kit and caboodle. Like, that's pretty well known. So it's not surprising that. These are, what does it say about them? These are two dudes. They secured several $1 million in seed funding. So this is Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring. So they did found the news website, the actual website, and they got seed funding from these guys, Dan and Forrest Wilkes. It was long, and the Daily Wire launched in 2015. So they were born in 1951, 52. Petroleum industry businessmen. They went on to found hydraulic fracking. Early lives, brothers or sons of Myrtle and Gwyn Boy Wilkes. Anyway, in 1947, a group of parishioners from the Ramsey Church of Christ were disfellowshipped after a doctrinal dispute. These members included Charlie Fender and his son-in-law Boy Wilkes. That's the father of these two. The new group founded a church in De Leon, Texas, called the Church of Christ, and today it's then Charlie Fenter separated from that church and created a congregation which today calls itself the Assembly of Yahweh.
Yeah. Go some price to Yahweh.
So Fender died in 52 and Boy Wilkes took over the congregation. So Boy Wilkes, which is the father of these two guys that founded the Daily Wire, is listed as the founder of the Assembly of Yahweh. 62, they adopted the name Church of God, Seventh Day. 82, the church became the Assembly of Yahweh, Seventh Day. Currently, the Assembly of Yahweh is a conservative Jews for Jesus type congregation. It teaches that the true religion is Jewish, not a Gentile religion, and its members celebrate the Old Testament holidays rather than those related to the New Testament. The congregation considers the Old Testament historically and scientifically accurate, considers homosexuality and abortion to be crimes. So that's who funded the Daily Wire, of course. So because they knew that this was a startup company that a couple of Jewish guys, Israel First American Jews, wanted to get going to promote Jewishness in America, and of course these two guys being members of a church called the Assembly of Yahweh that celebrates the Old Testament and that Christianity is, well, basically Christianity is Jewish, or the true religion is Jewish, and Gentiles can go fuck themselves. So it's not surprising that they would have given money to Ben Shapiro and what do you call him?
But this is what and other flavors of this is what Tucker Carlson before this week very clearly said is a Christian heresy. And he's reiterated a few times that the convention, and this is true, you go on Wikipedia and this is accepted, it's not just Catholicism, it's also it's a rare sect in Protestantism, though maybe not so rare in the United States, that places primacy on the Old Testament. And as Ted Cruz quoted to Carlson in that summer interview, the part from Genesis where he's like, well, blessed are those who bless Israel and cursed are those who don't. And Carlson's like, yeah, but that's like Cruz was like, or at least he presented himself as equally confused back to Carlson, like everyone believes that. No, Carlson has since clarified that it's heretical to believe that that's still the case, because if you're a Christian, you believe there is no chosen people by birthright. There's no genetic chosenness. It's not a DNA chosenness. Fine, if that's the Jewish belief, but we as Christians have moved on from that 2 millennia ago. So he's I don't know how conscious he is of what he's doing, but bit by bit he's introducing more and more scripture and saying things like this, like calling it a Christian heresy. Carlson is trying to undo, it seems, whether he's aware of it or not, a reversion back to a Christianity that has not been the norm, even among Protestants, for ages, if ever. Anyway, so the pushback we're getting, well, it depends on whether they're talking about Israel and national security and we love Israel because we need them and stuff like that. But when it comes to theological examples, of which Cruz has given another one last week in his rants at the Christians United for Israel event, he gave these theological reasons for why the US should absolutely remain totally joined at the hip with Israel.
Mhm.
And that was that he reiterated what he said, blessed are those who bless Israel. And if you don't, you're damned, basically. The US is damned without them. What's amazing to me, you said at the time when Cruz and Carlson had that interview that Cruz is bullshit. He knows better. He's just saying the religious stuff.
Mhm.
But he sounds like a believer to me. Like he was genuinely surprised,
Believes in money,
and horrified that people are beginning to question what we have all already known, always known. You know what I mean? These people really feel that they're under attack, and that what they believe is the norm. But
yeah,
they're aberrant. They're absolutely not the norm.
Well, maybe I don't know enough, obviously, about Cruz to know whether or not he's actually a true believer, or whether he's, because a lot of people are, and there's nothing wrong necessarily with being a true believer, but the problem is whether or not you're a true believer in something that's true. That's a bit of a stretch, I suppose, because most religions, to one extent or another, aren't true. But it's more about then, the only thing you can really come down to would be whether or not you're a true believer in a religion that actually espouses and does good in the world rather than evil, based on fundamental humanist values, let's say. Because that's what you have to bring it down to, because all religions basically can be accused of being wrong or made up or lies, whatever. So you have to bring it down to a humanist value, to humanism, basically, and just human rights and basic human morality, basic decency, and then build up from there what religions actually espouse positive human values, and also what religions. You could say that all of them do. You could cherry pick, maybe some more than others, certainly some more than others. But you could then look at what religions are being used to justify doing the exact opposite of that. And that's the only way you're going to figure out what's good and what's bad, basically. Because nobody's going to listen to you, try and dig into the historicity of any particular religion or religious figure. No believer's going to listen to you and tell you, if you try and tell them that their chosen holy person or whatever didn't actually exist, and that it's all made up. So there's no point in trying to do it that way. The only thing you could really appeal to would be to, and this way you kind of separate the wheat from the chaff in a certain sense. The only thing you can appeal to is basic human, decent human, positive human values, and show that and question a person who believes in a certain religion, if that particular religion is being used to justify doing exactly the opposite of promoting or upholding positive human values. Then you could say, well, listen, maybe you're in the wrong religion. Maybe that's the religion of the devil. I mean, by its fruits you shall know it, basically. You know what I mean? So, but of course they always have an answer to it, because it's all ultimately personal subjective belief, So you're not going to get anybody to, probably not a true believer, you're not going to get them to admit it. Like, I mean, you can have very devout, Christians, let's say Catholics, who, be quite militant, who keep to themselves and that kind of stuff, but they're quietly, for good reason. They quietly, in their own minds, in their own hearts, or in amongst themselves, disavow Israel and the Old Testament and Yahweh completely, and would claim that it's very clear that Jesus is, the Savior. He is God, effectively, even though he's the Son of God, but effectively he's God made manifest, and it's pretty clear that he came along and said that Old Testament business is done. That's how they interpret it, and you can interpret it that way. In the verse, things that Jesus said that this fulfills the kind of
the law. Love fulfills the law.
Yeah,
all of you who are following the law nonstop, hoping to win God's favor, and then tweaking the laws to fit it in.
Yeah.
No.
The previous covenant here first, the
Yes.
covenant with the old covenant, the Old Testament, and that his new covenant fulfills the kind of requirement for the old one, or the old one, or whatever, supersedes the old one basically, and that his is a new covenant, and that's what people should follow. And so there's not really, we can make that argument, but there's not really any way to reconcile those two, and it is pretty clear that Jesus came along, and like if the New Testament is night and day from the Old Testament, from many parts of the Old Testament, we have the Yahweh, the angry, jealous destroyer God, and Jesus, the peacenik. So like I've said before, like if Jesus is the son of Yahweh, he fell very far from that apple, fell very far from that tree. And maybe it was a classic situation where as above so below. You have sons of fathers who really, because their father was, jealous and angry and abusive and stuff, they basically disavow him and say, I never want to speak to him again, and they don't like their father, maybe that was the case with Jesus, maybe any additions or anything positive you could see about Jesus referring to his father in heaven. Maybe he wasn't referring to Yahweh, but if he was, basically, maybe they're all additions where anything positive Jesus says about his father in heaven is just gloss, and that ultimately, if you read between the lines, he obviously didn't get on very well with his father, and he was trying to break with his father, and he was trying to tell the people of earth that, look, that guy who was your God beforehand, he's a bad dude.
He's psychotic and he's holding you all hostage.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm here to kind of like
set you free,
and remind you that, just tell you basically stay away from him. Like I'm disabusing myself. I'm like basically cutting all ties with him, and I think you all should as well.
Religion will always be subjective, so you can dive into Old and New Testament and pull up basically the opposite to what most of your peers around you assume or have interpreted their way. So in the end, what matches to what it is that the person in question is representing or trying to say about current events, not just over there in Israel, but vis-a-vis the Charlie Kirk situation and domestically in the US. That's where the rubber hits the road. There's no need for a theological debate, but it is interesting for us to know that Carlson especially has been mentioning Paul and citing Paul often. Maybe Fuentes did likewise. The Jerusalem Post, in its review/critique of the fact that this took place and Carlson is now condemned from American society, they wish. The
reason
noted that, they agreed on something else. They both agreed on Paul. Now, I don't know if anyone writing for the Jerusalem Post in secular Israel picks up on the implications of that, but
maybe they do. Depends how familiar they are with biblical text, but there's a reason why both Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes are all Catholics. Why did they not join some other? Why did they not convert to Judaism? Why did they not? Well, you can understand why they didn't convert to Judaism, although a lot of Americans have done. But they could have adopted some other. They could have become some kind of fundy.
Did you include
Jews for Jews for Jesus, or Jesus for Jews, whatever?
Did you include Carlson there?
Yeah,
he's not, as far as I know. I think he's still evangelical. I think so.
You think?
Yeah, but I'll throw it in here. Candace, in one of her shows this week, she came back and did 5 shows last week, and one of them she said, "Why did they lie about his conversion?" Because she says, "I know we have to go on her say so. He had a Catholic mass for his funeral."
Who?
Kirk.
Oh. Why did they lie about his conversion? What do you mean?
Well, they were responding. Andrew Colvett and TPUSA were responding to her initial shows, and one thing she'd mentioned was that he was going to Catholic mass in the summer, and between the lines, she interpreted that he was going to convert. But that sent a few ruffles in its own right after his assassination. Why would it? It shouldn't. It's just a small detail about a man where the important thing is that he was murdered. But it bothered them. And she said, I know that he had a Catholic funeral mass.
Well, anyway,
was buried in a Catholic cemetery.
If Tucker isn't Catholic, he should be. I'm pretty sure. I thought he converted. I mean,
he's always described himself as a middle of the road evangelical.
Oh yeah,
to be modest, because he's trying to, like, when he started becoming quite sermon like in the last year. I think it began with his speech at the Heritage Foundation last year. In hindsight, we now know from this documentary he did that he had this weird experience where he was fighting a literal demon or some quasi paraphysical demon that left him with scratches one night a couple of years ago, and that he started reading the Bible in a really deep way. So he's had some kind of, let's say, conversion. He's been waking up over the last 10, 15 years, but something happened to him recently that scared the shit out of him. That's why since then he's been like, the supernatural is real, evil is real. You know, wherever he can insert that, he has been making that.
Yeah. Apparently officially based on data, Carlson's not Catholic, but has expressed interest in the Catholic Church and its teachings. He mentioned a shift in his faith journey, moving away from his Episcopalian roots towards a greater appreciation for Catholicism. So maybe that's where I picked up on. Anyway, he certainly sounds like more like a Catholic than a Protestant. But so there's a reason that's the case, I think, and it's because, you know, what we said, we're talking about before, the Jesus basically professing, you know, all of the positive human qualities, positive human values, and that's from the New Testament. And the Old Testament, the Jewish, essentially, allegedly Jewish Old Testament, not being quite so pacifist or humanitarian. And it can be used for that. So if you're a warmonger and you like power and domination and you want to kill people and stuff to get it, then pick Judaism, right? Pick the Old Testament, because you're much more likely to be able to justify it based on the text of that book and the words of Yahweh than you are the text of the New Testament and the words of Jesus. Pretty much, Jesus won't deport you and any of that. So so basically it comes down to a person's nature. You know, if a person is actually a decent human being who isn't interested in power for its own sake, and power and wealth for its own sake, and domination, and, you know, supremacy and killing other people and power, basically, then you're more likely to gravitate towards Catholicism. But if you do look like those kind of things, then you're more likely to find common cause with the Old Testament and Judaism, so of course the Jews have the Old Testament largely supporting them, and then the major kind of Protestant, evangelical, etc., like the one we just mentioned, that those two guys, what was it called?
Assemble of Yahweh's, Seventh Days, Sabbatean. I mean, those guys are fringe, even in the American hierarchy of sects. They're definitely fringe. So much so that they were booted, or their father was.
The Assembly of Yahweh, yeah.
But it is steeped. I mean,
but it's all the same. Like, I mean,
Mormons.
Well, look, that congregation considers the Old Testament historically and scientifically accurate. That's pretty much every Protestant religion.
Yeah.
You know, and pretty much every religion, non-Catholic Christian religion also, or denomination, also, thinks that, you know, prefers or highlights the Old Testament over the New Testament.
Cites it, or
so in that sense, they're all, to one extent or another, you know, Christians for Jews, not Jews for Jesus. They're Christians for Jews. They're basically Judeo-Christian. So and so the whole thing. I mean, so I can understand how, you know, like that's what I was trying to say. I mean, you take anybody who's devout, who's devoutly religious, particularly, you know, either Christian or Muslim, let's say. You take anybody who has that, you know, profound, let's say, belief and conviction. it's in their DNA type thing. If they've been brought up with it particularly, or if they've internalized it in some way or another, it's you're not going to get them to change their minds, right? And it is going to be something that is very real for them. So like I said, the only way you can figure out whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is look at the fruits of it, but even if you're able to look at the fruits of it and point out that one has less positive fruits than the other, you're still not going to get any adherents to actually change their mind on it,
Yeah.
Because you're talking about religious belief here. So, what do you call them? Ted Cruz. Is he a true believer? If he is, then forget about trying to convince him.
No.
Otherwise, and forget about trying to pick him apart, or even necessarily if you know that he's a true believer, then he's not just saying it to justify what he might get, like in terms of money from the Israel lobby, or whether or not he thinks it's politically or geopolitically expedient to support Israel, and therefore he has to pretend that he's a true believer to use the Bible to justify his support for Israel, because otherwise he'd have to explain in raw, naked, imperialistic terms why he supports Israel, and therefore he'd be accused of being a turncoat or a traitor. But if he can pull in religious belief, well then you can get away with it.
Yeah.
Or if you can cite a religious text and say that's why I support Israel. Me support Israel because I get money from AIPAC? No. Me support Israel because
Genesis says
because geopolitically it's very important for me as an American senator and my position of power in America. I'm a long-term politician, and Israel is very important geopolitically for American hegemony, and my own personal power and influence and wealth is associated with American hegemony and America continuing to be a hegemon in the world, and Israel is essential for America continue to be a hegemon in the world. That's why I support Israel. No, because Genesis says you must support Israel. Okay, fair enough if that's the case, but you can understand why I might question the sincerity of that when there's maybe two other very compelling reasons why he might be supporting Israel that are rather disingenuous or that are selfish, and to overlook those and believe him when he opts for the book says that I have to, and I'm such a good religious man, I'm compelled to. That's why. Because someone told me that it was a verse. God told me, basically. It's kind of like the defense of the psychopath. God told me to do it.
Yeah.
Their last ditch effort. God told me to do it. All right. So you robbed the bank because God told you to do it, not because you wanted money. No, it's because God told me to do it. Okay.
Blessed are those who rob the banks.
Yeah. Blessed are those who rob banks. So says Yahweh. So, and I believe, and therefore, you can't convict me of any crime.
A couple of last things on Fuentes himself. So he said in his interview with Carlson, Carlson was like, what are you trying to, what would you like? What are you serious about? He said, I want, if not me per se, I want my stance on America first, sans Israel, to become the opposition. The real opposition in the United States. It doesn't really matter what the GOP or the Democrat Party is saying per se. This stance ought to become the opposition. Cruz doesn't realize what he's just done here. So this is he's weighed in on Fuentes commenting on his comments at the recent Republicans. What was it? Republicans for
Republican Jewish Coalition.
Coalition.
Yeah.
So Fuentes comments, about Cruz's speech. At this Republican Jewish coalition, Ted Cruz says that he repeatedly begged Trump to bomb Iran for weeks. Don't let the $7,000 club gaslight you into thinking that their attacks on Tucker Carlson and me are about quote-unquote anti-Semitism. Okay, that's his comment.
This is about Israel losing control over America. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
That's missing for some reason. It's on the bottom of Nicholas Fuentes' tweet after the anti-Semitism thing. See the ...
Uh-huh.
There's a final line that says this is which is the point that he's actually making. He's saying, don't let them gaslight you into thinking that their attacks on me are about anti-Semitism. They're about Israel losing control over America.
Okay.
That's what he says underneath.
Okay.
It's an unfinished statement, yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is that Cruz responds to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not the only one. The other bigwigs have engaged directly with the man who's supposed to be bloody firewalled all week long. Because there's a response from Fuentes to this that outratios Cruz anew. I don't have it here, but there's a thread back and forth between them. Cruz responds, Trump's bombing the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good. Maybe Cruz isn't aware of it, but he's in a losing position. His response got ratioed on X. Mm-hmm. And what I'm thinking is what they're inadvertently doing is it's unstoppable. I'm not saying they're consciously doing it. They are elevating Fuentes and / his articulation of the problem in the United States to the opposition.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ted Cruz's response there is not a response. It's not an answer to like the statement, the accusation that Fuentes made below, the accusation that Ted Cruz is responding to. Ted Cruz's response is not actually a response to it at all. It doesn't address anything that all it is it's basically an ad hominem.
Yeah.
He just calls him a little Nazi. That's pretty much the only thing you get out of Ted Cruz's response is that he's a little Nazi.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not an answer. Like if I make a point, and Nicholas Fuentes made a point saying that Ted Cruz admitted himself that he repeatedly begged Trump to bomb Iran for weeks. I.e., Ted Cruz was lobbying Trump in the interest of Israel.
Yeah.
In order to try and shore up Israel's power and influence in the Middle East and therefore its power over America. And so Ted Cruz is trying to run interference for people who are outing Israel and trying to reduce their influence over American politics. And that's what Ted Cruz is fighting back against. That's basically what Nick Fuentes said, is that you're basically running interference for Israel. You're trying to prevent me, like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, from reducing Israel's influence over America. That's what you're trying to do. And in response to that accusation, Ted Cruz says, shut up, you little Nazi.
Yeah. Which has been basically
which is why you should get ratioed, like, you know.
Yeah.
Because Fuentes made a reasonable accusation that, you know, is based on, could be inferred from Ted Cruz's own words, and Ted Cruz had basically no response to it. Probably because it's probably close to the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is all they have. Mm-hmm. Some version of it. But all I'm noting is that this week was like full on. It's like we've seen a variety of campaigns in recent weeks, like the response to suspicions online about Kirk's assassination. The Ziobot network was like, no, Israel has nothing to do with this. Okay, fine. But you're saying that a little too loud, huh? So that event was the Republican Jewish Coalition event. Randy Fine, you know that guy? Mm-hmm. He's a representative from one of the Bible Belt states. Tucker Carlson is the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. Mm-hmm. Basically the same ad hominem as with Fuentes. You're just a Nazi.
Randy Fine's Jewish, though.
Huh?
Randy Fine's Jewish.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay.
So, just saying, but not surprising that he would have a go because he's Jewish.
Okay, well, we're not supposed to have noticed that because he's an American representative, right?
Yeah, but he's Jewish.
But he's an American.
One comes first.
Being American, of course.
No.
Because he's a representative in Congress.
No.
Oh.
Everybody knows one comes first.
Right.
Well, everybody has any sense knows one comes first. This is plain. The thing that annoys me with all this is all of this is like, I'm tired of it because it's all this plain. People are arguing over, stuff that's patently obvious, and sure, maybe it's interesting, but I get a bit exasperated because it's like, I see people who are making, like, I just give you an example there of Nick Fuentes making a valid point and getting called a Nazi in response. Well, when somebody does that, generally speaking, you can assume that the person who made the accusation and gets called a Nazi as a response is right, is making a solid point. And then you can look it up yourself and find out that it probably is true that Ted Cruz is running interference for Israel and trying to maintain Israel's influence in the Middle East in general, and also its influence over American politics, because Ted Cruz is maybe a true believer, or he's doing it for more cynical reasons that involve his own personal profit and power. So you find somebody in that position and you start pointing out that that's what they're doing. Well, they're going to call you a Nazi. So how many times does that have to happen before every rational person looks at it and goes, well, look, is there anything else to debate here? Can we not all just shouldn't everybody just walk away? I mean, okay, you can keep fighting over it because these people are still going to fight, but shouldn't everybody draw the conclusion? Shouldn't it be obvious by now what is what? It
is, but all we're left to watch
is
the big wigs, the ones in power or with power or
trying to desperately hold on,
and they do it by getting louder and more concerted.
Or they might get more draconian. They might start passing laws where you're not allowed to say certain things.
That's where the rubber hits the road. Are they going to do COVID style shut up or the police are knocking on your door threats en masse?
Maybe they're starting already, who knows?
Kirk was probably a message. Does it end there? Because it's pro-cyclical, so there's a backlash, and they go, this is strange. And Netanyahu flies to Washington. We must change the algorithm, and he basically said, we bought TikTok for this purpose publicly. Okay, so you bought TikTok, and it seems that you're able to somehow or other try to tweak X, but that's not really working. You go on X, and it doesn't matter what your feed is. You can still get into the meat of discussion. You can see all the stuff flying back and forth, and you can't avoid seeing Nick Fuentes, even if you loathe him and don't follow him, because so many others are noting what him and similar voices. I suppose Carlson should now be put as a similar voice to Fuentes. Are saying,
and Cannazones, like Ted Cruz there said after Charlie Kirk, he said this. This is in light of his response to Nick Fuentes. Here's what he said about Charlie Kirk.
They've said over and over again for more than a decade, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler. That, I just retweeted a couple of days ago. They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. I have to say I saw a poll.
There you go. That was, what, a month ago?
Right. But that's eerie in light of what we just saw him say to.
He just responded to Nick Fuentes that you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
A month ago he said they don't call you a Nazi so they can.
They don't kill you.
Don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. So he's trying to, metaphorically or reputationally kill Nick Fuentes by calling him a Nazi.
And Carlson, if he's at the same event as Randy Fine.
So, Ted Cruz is compromised. He's not an honest person. He's not a decent person. He's not a serious person. And he had a long interview, as you were saying there, a few months ago with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson wasn't really able to pin him down on anything. Carlson was beating around the bush a little bit and stuff, and being circumspect about a lot of stuff, but he still wasn't able to really nail Ted Cruz down, on Israel and all that kind of stuff. And the most he got out of him was that Ted Cruz said it's in the Bible that you should you'd be blessed if you God will bless you if you support Israel.
Well, Cruz has since said, and do you find this satisfactory? I didn't. At the Kufi, Christians United for Israel event, not this one, last week's, we must support, in public policy terms, we must support Israel because it's in the national security interest of the United States. Again, that smacks to me. That's best. That may as well be in the Bible. That's been the 20th century mantra of the United States empire.
Well,
that's not a fucking reason.
Well, it is. He's being more honest.
Like. Oh, you think that's okay?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, at least if he said that, then at least he's being more honest about it, and it shows that he's actually using religion to, unless he's some kind of. I mean, if he's a fundy believer, like a true believer, he's not a serious person. You know what I mean? He shouldn't be tasked with any. He shouldn't be in a position of power. He shouldn't be in a position to pass laws or to have influence over other people if he's one of those fundy believers. You know what I mean? That's
right.
That's not a rational person. You know, it doesn't mean you can't be a believer, but it's not rational belief whenever you just take the Bible as literal historical truth and swallow the whole thing hook, line, and sinker. You know, that's not a rational response. So. If he said, and I'm not surprised because I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it before, that words to that effect, that it's American support for Israel is in America's national security interest, that's true. As I've said repeatedly on this show many times, over and over again, ad nauseum. And it's just plain, like I said, it's one of those things that's as plain as the nose on your face. That obviously, you know, that's historical fact, let's say. So if that's what he's saying, or that's the reason for his support for Israel, well, then we have to throw out his claim to be a Christian or believer at all. That's just gloss. He's using that to add on to his rationale, because, like I said, and a lot of them have to do that, and that's why that's all you're getting. You're getting the whole religious thing because it's pointed, it's aimed at the average person, who aren't really, you know, up to speed on the geopolitical aspect of it, the actual reality of why America supports Israel, why it's in America's national interest to support Israel. They're not up to speed on the geopolitical dynamics of that, and they're not interested. It's too far away. It's outside of America's borders. Where is the Middle East anyway? You know, what's in Israel? Well, Israel, it's in the Bible, right? But is that a country? I don't know. Anyway, they're not very, you know, the average true believer Christian American isn't necessarily geopolitically or geographically aware, let's say. Their focus is on Israel in the context of the Bible and why the Judeo-Christianity thing and God and Yahweh, right? So he has to, on his interview with Tucker Carlson, it's not surprising that he would cite the Bible, and that's why he supports Israel, because it says so in the Bible that you'll be blessed if you support Israel. God said you'll be blessed if you support Israel. Because if he were to explicitly explain his reasons, his geopolitical reasons, which are his real reasons, his real motivation for supporting Israel, his real understanding of why he has to support Israel, and America has to support Israel, it's easier to pick holes in. It's easier to undermine. At least it's easier to make the case to make a case to undermine it. But ultimately, like I've said this before as well. Ultimately, if every single American was able to and was brought up to speed on the geopolitical realities of American support for Israel and why America has to support Israel, why it has supported Israel to such an extent, and why it has to continue,
the scales would fall from their eyes in terms of their religious beliefs about it.
No, it would be the reason would be just as compelling.
Okay,
and it would be almost a straight swap alternative to religion, but their strength of the strength of most Americans' belief, if they were explained to them very clearly, the strength of their conviction for support for American support of Israel would be equal to the strength of the religious conviction. Because on the one hand, you have I brought Jesus and Yahweh and Israel into my heart, and it's part of me, and it's what God said, and I believe it, and I'm, I'm filled with the love of Yahweh or Jesus and Yahweh all together, or whatever. However, I mixed it all up.
Yeah.
But equally strong would be the need to continue to enjoy the standard of living that Americans enjoy. That's a, what's that phrase? It's very difficult to get someone to believe something when
their livelihood depends on
them not believing it, for example.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. It's very hard to get someone to not believe something, or to accept. Yeah, it's very hard to get someone to accept something as true, or to believe, to accept something as true, when their livelihood depends on them not accepting it as true. So, I mean, that's a phrase, a truism about human nature and stuff. So, the geopolitical argument for supporting Israel would be equally compelling for the average American if it was explained to them in proper terms as the religious argument. The geopolitical argument would be equally compelling as the political argument. As a religious argument.
Though, is that the critics are just gloss over it whenever they all, not just Fuentes, all of them say, we get nothing out of this, as in material. There's no material benefit to us. So what are we doing anyway?
Sure they do.
And the believers, the pro-Israel crowd in power, never respond to that. They never give, oh, well, here they are. Cruz gave one. He gave one material reason, but even that fell flat in his face as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if we didn't have Israel and the $3 billion military aid ticket every year we give them, we wouldn't have the Mossad.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would have to invest billions ourselves in spying on the Middle East and getting information on Iran and our enemies, which are Israel's enemies, etc.
Mm-hmm.
He was seriously selling that as a material, tangible reason. But that's easily countered too. You can poke a hole in that, because the Mossad isn't exactly going to be honest with you about what the situation is. You should really bomb there, like tomorrow. Why? Oh, we're listening. Hang on, we're listening. Yeah, they're saying kill all American infidels. No way. Oh my God, we're going to bomb. Like,
but that's code for they're threatening. I mean, that's code for you need to take out this country. You need to take out Hezbollah. You need to take out Assad. You need to take out Iran. You need to take out Iraq. You need to take out whoever. Maybe Egypt at some point. Who knows? Probably not. But if it came to Egypt, because they're going to kill. But that's just slop. Call that. That's goy slop, right? That's slop for the guys, That's understood, obviously, by the people in the American intelligence community, of the military industrial complex, as they understand that it's that look, our plan here. Our plan is to secure the Middle East for Israel and for you, like us, Israel, America, marry Israel, America, Israel, America,
Israel.
We have to secure the Middle East in perpetuity for us. So here's today's narrative.
Yeah.
Those
go run with it.
Fill in Middle Eastern nation are planning to, bomb Americans or attack American ships or bomb Israel or whatever. They had to spread it out to America. Like, it couldn't always be, oh, poor me, poor Israel, they're always after me, you know what I mean? Because you wouldn't get much. Eventually, that wouldn't last for very long, I mean, Americans might say, well, work it out yourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you had to have America being attacked as well by Middle Eastern countries, starting on, for example, 9/11, and since then, in order to get American power into the Middle East and American investment into the Middle East, and also to get to develop a anti-Muslim, anti-Arab sentiment amongst the American population, to get them personally invested in it, in order to, because the government in America and Israel needed American popular support for interventions in the Middle East in order to secure the Middle East for Israel.
Yeah. They needed to get Americans to the whole homeland thing after 9/11. That was an Israeli thing. They inserted that cultural concept into the US. So they would see the world in exactly the same way as Israelis see it. And
The
I hope
homeland?
that it would just, I can't remember the origins of it, but I think it was an Israeli who came up with that concept of Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, Homeland Security,
securing the homeland, because that was foreign to America. There was no homeland. Was like when they heard that in the 20th century, they're like it's like the fatherland. You know, they would mock it as a silly European anachronism, or the motherland. There was never any American understanding of the United States the country as our patriotism as the homeland. That was a post 9/11 thing to marry the same security policies, but also culturally to see the world in the same way. This is our homeland. But the catch was our homeland is us and Israel together. It's one and the same, you know.
Fuentes said this week as well that he flip-flops an awful lot. It's hard to get a read on. I think he's figuring stuff out, you know. I mean, these people, you have to understand, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, etc., are all on a learning curve here.
Oh yeah,
they're on a point on a learning curve, and they're learning pretty quick, and that's not surprising because stuff has started to happen a lot more quickly. Events are moving very, very quickly over the past 5 to 10 years compared to the previous 10, 15 years, where a lot more is being revealed, and it's a lot easier to figure things out in terms of general conspiracy theories or general awareness of skullduggery in the halls of power and all that kind of stuff that in previous decades was only in the domain of crazy conspiracy theories, and people paid not a lot of attention to it. But now today there's a lot more, it gets a lot more traction because there's a lot more.
Well, because of Gaza.
Well, not just Gaza,
this
but I'm talking about COVID and all that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of different things have come out, exposed, to his credit, exposed by Trump, just by being Trump, trying to be president. It exposed a lot of the corruption in the halls of power in America and stuff. So there's been a generalized, in the past 5-10 years, a generalized awakening of the population to ideas that were formerly called conspiracy theories that now have become conspiracy facts, that people can't deny, So people like Fuentes, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are all children of that awakening, let's say, and they so they're trying to put things together, and they're figuring out quite quickly at what's going on. But this is all stuff that we've been aware of, for 30 years. I've been talking about 25, 30 years ago. So it's kind of old news to us. So in a certain sense, we sit back and we can critique it and all that kind of stuff, but you have to accept that, people are...
They're new.
It's a certain time where people are waking up to these kind of things, and we're like, oh, finally, we're wondering when you were going to figure that out.
I remember years ago, you were like, I wonder why more people don't do this. Would you say you're happier now that more people are doing it?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of voices out there. It used to be our prominence.
Except the only there's a downside to that, which is that the reason that there's many more voices now is because things have got much, much worse.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about it at a time when it was relatively
good times.
Less egregious. And you had to really not dig, but you didn't have the audience because people weren't concerned because it didn't affect them. It wasn't personal. You know what I mean? It didn't affect them directly, or they didn't feel that it affected them directly. But there's been, like I said, there's been an awakening over the past 10 years, really since Trump came around, at least in terms of America. But it, it has coincided with that, as well. Because Trump, 2016, 16, had sudden mass immigrations from different places and all that kind of stuff. The immigration issues in Europe kicked off around 2015. The whole ISIS thing was happening then. There's all sorts of different things. You'd have to, carefully go back and look at the past 10 years and all the events that happened and fit things into that category of things that very likely started to make people start to question, or not even start to question, but just make people worried. Things that started to impinge or intrude directly on people's awareness or their sense of safety, their sense of security, and that forcing them then to start to question what's actually going on here, to one extent or another, depending on the person. But like Nick Fuentes is he said this week, I think it was maybe on a Rumble show, whatever. He started saying, "Well, I'm okay with, I'm okay with. I'm not super happy about it, but I'm okay with Trump, for example, invading Venezuela and getting the oil. Because he was broaching or started to feel out the topic as almost like in his own mind of what we've been talking about recently." About Trump about the whole idea of multipolar world, the changes towards a multipolar world, and
refocusing on our near abroad.
Having to refocus on near abroad. And so Nick Fuentes is getting some kind of inkling of that and saying, well, it's not so bad. But then at the same time, he kind of criticize that because it's not really America first. But then he's like, well, maybe it is America first because, maybe the reality now is that's part of America first, basically, because it's in our backyard and we need that oil, because how are we going to make America? Because people like him have a problem, you know what I mean? Especially him, like Tucker Carlson's more passive about it, but Nick Fuentes is like, I'm going to be the opposition. We're going to take over this place. We're going to set the clearly, set the division very clearly. This is what we stand for, and that's what they stand for. And now everybody gets to choose, and then he's going to rise up and be the next king of America, right? But if he has pretensions towards that, he has to realize that there's geopolitical and economic realities that he has to take into consideration as well. Like, he's not going to make America great again if America goes down the tubes economically. Forget about it. And in fact, things may be a lot worse. He may have he may imagine that in a situation where America turns into a second-rate economic power, that would be a perfect opportunity for the left to snap back and take power again. You have the Democrats back in. You'd have Kamala Harris as president next time in a kind of socialist hellhole of America,
or AOC,
or AOC, governing over socialist hellhole where everybody's living on $20 a day. There's so he'd say, well, like, basically, make America great again requires the means to greatness, and one of the central pillars of greatness, at least in this world, is
empire,
is economic might.
Yeah,
and economic might is dependent on in the world as it is today is empire, is controlling other countries. America's history of that. It's the old, if the only thing you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. America's 80 years of running the country and the world as hegemon and in an imperialistic fashion, and it doesn't really have the ability, there isn't really the option to suddenly retool the whole thing for some other approach, that America could take. That's what they've done.
Like being partners with other countries. No.
Yeah. No, because what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Partners, that's not what we do. That's not who we are. It's like, I've used this analogy before, like
they're paranoid, they don't trust people.
Well, a bully in the schoolyard who's been a bully for forever in the schoolyard, he's been the bully. And then one day he's going to wake up and go, you know what? I don't want to be bullied anymore.
I can see which way the wind's blowing. So if I become a nice person, nice, that's too simpy, but maybe if I'm less of a bully, I'll be accepted. They don't have the insight to have such an introspection.
Well, no.
That's all they know. Like Trump has said that the world's a savage place. I'm out there, I'm meeting all these killers for world leaders. Yeah. He really sees them as that.
Yeah.
But dude, you represent a country that kills.
Well,
more than...
If he was honest, he would, if he knew anything, which he doesn't really know very much about American history or how America has operated for most of its history, he would realize that, the state of the world, if there's a lot of killers out there in the world, America is responsible for them being in those positions. America created a lot of those killers, those rough people that Trump has to deal with. That's your legacy right there. It's not the reality that you have to respond to. It's the reality that you created.
Like Saudi head choppers.
Yeah. So, and also there's a problem. If you're a bully, if you're a bully for forever, as long as anybody in the schoolyard can remember, you've been a bully, and suddenly you turn around into a peacenik. What about payback? Think there's going to be any payback? So when you put down your knuckle dusters and your stick or whatever you use to bully people, and said you told all the kids that you've been bullying for 10, 20, 50 years, whatever, told them that you're going to be a peacenik now and you're not going to do any more bullying. You want to cooperate. I think any of them are going to get together and say, it's time for some payback.
Well, that's what they're worried about.
Well, exactly. So that's in their minds, they figure, well, there's no option for us to do that. We can't do that. If we drop our guard, those people will turn on us. They won't be able to. Maybe some of the more perspicacious ones will be able to turn around and say, look, frame it in those terms. Like they're gonna come in and get revenge on us for what we have done.
Which is a kind of an Israeli light type psychology. America has been so. It is
pernicious.
It's pernicious. It's a version of what the Israelis are permanently up against.
Yeah.
When they see the victims all around them going, what are you still doing here?
It's like my favourite quote from Macbeth, I am in blood so far steeped in that to go back would be as tedious as to go over, i.e. I've gone so far down this road now that turning back is not an option.
Yeah.
And I have to double down on it. Now Trump, the problem with that is that Trump is realizing that he can't double down on it. Because beforehand, the way America operated was they basically browbeat, every now and again they threw some shitty little country up against the wall to show everybody that they meant business to intimidate the rest of the world. Or for bigger powers, they used all sorts of different means to take them down, They've been hoisted on their own petard effectively because by acting that way for so long, they have forced countries like Russia and China to build up enough national defense capability in order to not be subject to that to the same degree
and to do some of it in kind.
And so Trump is now looking.
The United States in the last 100 years has trained everyone else, to be like that, at least a bit.
Well, they've trained them to respond to defend themselves. You know what I mean? I mean, you walk into an aggressive schoolyard or whatever, and you realize that you're going to have to, get your knife or get your baton or whatever to protect yourself. So now it's got to that point where the Russians and the Chinese, for example, see Trump attempting, and they're not sure whether he's sincere or not because they know there's people behind him, but they hear Trump trying to make peace overtures and let's do business and talking about multipolar world and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, okay, so now the tables have turned. Are you coming cap in hand to us? Is there some cap in hand coming where you're asking us for favors, whatever? Because we can listen to them, but you realize that we're not under any obligation to do that. We don't have to do that like we maybe had to do it before. Beforehand, you came to us and made threats, and we would have to pay our homage and do whatever you wanted. Now we don't have to. And so what you're offering us, let's make a really good deal now and stuff. It's like, well, we have a better way. What if we just say fuck you? And you can't do anything about it because we're already set on a course that you set us on by acting in that way for so long. And why would we do that now? They're not even being mean, let's say, to America. It's not even about revenge. It's that Russia and China have set themselves on a course that is in their own national interests, the interests of their people. And to now turn away from that to some degree
and embrace
would not be an embrace America or accept that America is now this kind of like more open, more friendly country. It doesn't want to be a hegemon anymore. It's more open to cooperating, all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, we'll consider it, but we have to consider that in terms of our own interests and whether or not we should meet you halfway there, or whether it'd be better for our own interests to continue on the path that we've begun and we're quite far down the line on. So I'm sorry, we'd like to, but I wish you had said this maybe 20 years ago. If you'd come to us 20 years ago, we could have done something. But today,
20 years ago,
their
head was so far up their ass, they believed that they
didn't have to.
They create reality.
Yeah, they didn't have to.
And the rest of you were just left to study what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a good jump-off point for bringing in last week's topic, because we went into Trump's tariffs and international trade and what's going on there, and whether he was having any success or not. The Financial Times, now that's British, probably anti-Trump, never Trumper type bias is coming from, but they did this long article, and they're like, the title of it said it all: China is winning the trade war, because on every front, no matter what the US was pushing and rescinding or dangling or baiting, China won. You know what I mean? Went through Nexperia, the chip manufacturing company that the US basically forced the Dutch government to do an aggressive takeover of. That has already backfired on Europe and even on the US. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning it is because something happened this week, and it just seems symbolic. We don't know. No one will ever know. But what it was Trump, and who's going cap in hand here? You know, Trump's been talking all year about, well, no, I'm going to meet G. Me and G are going to meet. Yeah, I'm going to force a meeting, and he'll be cap in hand. Well, this week Trump flies to South Korea, and belatedly, it did seem so when they actually met and shook hands. He met G. Well,
G came to
maybe they had good statements. Warm handshake, was a great meeting. My friend G, blah blah blah. On his way to the meeting, he flew from somewhere in the southeast, maybe Thailand or Malaysia. Okay. While he's in the air, I think it's the same time. 2 craft that were stationed on or with another ship around the USS Nimitz, the aircraft carrier, which was in the South China Sea at the time, which China says is our waters, just fell out of the sky. No follow-up that I'm aware of. The pilots in both craft survived. They happened to the 2 craft within half an hour of each other. One is a Jeff and another FA-18 Hornet, because a couple of those have fallen out of the sky already this year elsewhere. And the other one was a chopper of some kind. The crew could eject in both cases. So no one died. But Trump was mid-air, Air Force One, and he must have heard about it because a reporter says, what happened here? Do you know? It's like the only official comment from Trump so far is, yeah, I heard it was bad fuel. We're not worried about it, or something like that. He just dismissed it. But you got to wonder, like, it's in Chinese, what the Chinese see as their waters. He's on his way to meet Xi.
Yeah. Probably EW, you know?
Chinese sending a message.
Well, yeah.
Doing something.
Yeah. Well, that's
covert.
But that speaks, well, yeah, but
as in, like, we didn't fire a missile and try to shoot Americans out of the sky. But
it's much better if you got something that can disable the electronics of jets and helicopters at a distance without blowing anything up, you know. So I'd say it's quite possible, and to be honest, that would be the guys in the Pentagon probably are obviously, you know, aware of that. You know, they get the reports of what actually happened, the flight data, whatever, and they probably know very well that it was some kind of, if it was, that it was some kind of electronic warfare. But and they probably immediately then thought of Russia, you know, because Russia is well known as having fairly advanced, you know, more advanced electronic warfare equipment and abilities than the US, and has done for quite a long time. Something that the Russians focused on and most likely shared with the Chinese.
And if so, the world has changed, because can you imagine 20 years ago at the peak of unipolar hegemony, even just the suspicion that another country had done something would have been casus belli for at least a massive media campaign, true or not, that the country was guilty in question, if not actually a casus belli to go to war. 20 years later, now, Pentagon's like, it's probably bad fuel. Nothing to see here. They have to eat it.
Well, it's probably the first time that's happened in a certain sense. You know, it hasn't happened that often to them, because, you know, the capability to do that hasn't always been there. You know what I mean? Or the opportunity. You know, so
it's new.
Yeah.
Did you see that Russia claimed this week they tested this Poseidon nuclear torpedo?
Before you go on that, just Xi and Trump met in Korea, right? South Korea, on the sidelines of the APEC summit. Both the Chinese and Trump were saying it's good. China and Beijing said that they'd reached a consensus to resolve major trade issues. Trump, in true style, said this meeting will lead to everlasting peace and success. God bless both China and Russia. God love Trump. He's trying his best, but and of course, you know, you have to take that. Trump thinks, again, he's the kind of person who thinks that when you say something, he's a reality creator, right? That's, I mean, that statement that was ascribed to Karl Rove, that we're a reality creator, we're an empire now, and we create reality, and the rest of you figure. That wasn't so much an elitist thing as him simply echoing what
Americans believe.
Most Americans actually believe, or the way that most Americans think, you know what I mean, or the way that they've been brought up to think, kind of thing. And Trump's a product of that as well, like in all of his statements about how everything's awesome, everything's the best. You can't believe any of it, you know what I mean? That it's not actually true. That works maybe within America, where self-supporting or self-sustaining in certain sense, where one person, if you said to someone else who believes that,
self-affirmations, positive mental attitude, pull yourself up by the
and everybody's on the same thing, and then you can actually do something with it. But it doesn't work so well with international politics, where other countries or other cultures don't have the same kind of mentality type thing, and when you say that, they kind of look at you as if to say, well, maybe, but
they don't have the same reality because they live in a world that's
harsher,
resource constrained. Mm-hmm. But if you're American, well, you just print more money and import more stuff.
So the Americans had the means to actually back up that idea of we create our own reality, basically, where if we say something's awesome and we're going to do it and we're going to make the bestest thing ever and stuff, there were the resources to feed into that fantasy and make it a reality. Where other countries and other cultures didn't have the same resources to actually do that. So they had to kind of like have a more realistic, let's say, approach to life. And then that has formed the cultural kind of, or cultural mindset, let's say, or the mentality of any given people in other countries, and it doesn't really mesh with, you know. So Xi listening to Trump saying this is peace and prosperity for everlasting forever.
Eternity is to a Chinese person, it means something very
and Xi's like, okay, so we just basically, you know, we'll try and figure out if we can get more of a handle on who's ordering the fentanyl precursors and fentanyl itself, but the fentanyl precursors in particular, to see if we can, you know, if you tell us there's certain companies in Latin America or even in Europe or anywhere really who are buying that, you know, if you Americans have a bead on how this is coming into your country, how it's being turned into basically drugs, fentanyl for
the street.
We'll try and, you know, curtail that. We'll try and maybe stop selling to those individuals. But it's difficult because the vast majority of people ordering fentanyl precursors are using it for it's used in hospitals. It's an anesthetic, and there's all sorts of other medical applications for it. So it's not easy for the Chinese to just, they're not just going to cut off. It's a revenue stream for them, a legitimate revenue stream, and they're just going to cut it off, you know. And so Trump, in return, Trump said he would lower. Well, China also said they would lift the blockade or the ban on exporting of rare earth minerals, which made Trump very happy because rare earth minerals from China are very important for American military in particular. And the US said it would, in return, would lower tariffs on Chinese products from 57% to 47%, so a 10% reduction, right? And that apparently was good enough for the Chinese, because the Chinese, it's all a balancing act kind of thing, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's still 47% more. It's going to cost American purchasers 47% more on top of the price they were paying previously for Chinese products, but that won't stop them from buying Chinese products. It's still cheap enough, or still cheaper from somewhere to get it from somewhere else, or they can't get it from somewhere else. So just pass that extra 47% on to
the consumer.
But from Trump's point of view, that
forces competition in the
exactly.
United
Well, it
States.
increases the prices of things as well. You don't want things to be dirt cheap. You don't want everything to be dirt cheap. You don't want your country to be flooded with dirt cheap products that are manufactured outside of the US. You know what I mean? Just in terms of like revenue, and I mean, it's an economic thing, right? But you want prices to be in a kind of sweet spot, not too high but not too low either, right? So that's what they agreed, and so not really such a big deal, and in fact something of Trump's own making. Trump, like, this is a reality creation thing as well, right? It's like you don't have a bad relationship with someone, but you deliberately start talking shit about them and calling them names, and then they call you names back. So now you have a bad relationship with them, and you've done that on purpose. So that now wait a little while and go and talk to them and kiss and make up, and then you can stand in front of the cameras and give a big hug and say, "Look, I just made peace."
Added to the list.
Exactly. And the only reason I made peace was because I made war first.
Yeah.
In order to be able to make peace, to get my Nobel Peace Prize. So I'm creating reality, right? It's like, just you wait. I'm going to have a really good relationship. I'm going to make peace with the Chinese. But you're not really at war with the Chinese yet. Yeah, but wait. And I'll kind of like start talking shit against them. And people will think that we're going to go to war with China. And then I'll go, no. I just had a talk and it's all fine. I am the peacemaker. It's like, that's reality creation.
Again, it's kind of an American light version of Israel. So the Mossad's motto is, by way of deception, thou shalt make war. They changed it, but that was the original line from Proverbs that they used and that they're infamous for.
Yeah.
The American version is just, by way of threatening war, I'll make peace.
Yeah.
I mean, but everyone can see it. It's different. It's not as clever. It's not quite as cunning.
No, but it fools a lot of people and it feels good. It's all about the feels, right?
It's kind of cheap, and easy.
It's cheap and cheesy, yeah.
Make a quick turnaround, quick buck.
Yeah, it's
short termist.
Yeah, it's empty calories.
Yeah. On Venezuela, so you were pointing out that Fuentes was like giving a kind of proto multipolarity, but still steeped in American imperialism rationale for why actually Venezuela would be good to have under our belt. Trump was actually, someone brought it to a head or tried to get a straight answer from out of, because the journalists are pushing back because they're Democrats usually in Washington, but they did hit him with some facts and forced an explicit statement from him that no, he is not planning to strike Venezuela.
Except that's what he said right before he attacked
Exactly.
Iran.
Maduro's actions speak to him being worried. So taking delivery this week of Russian materiel, we're not sure what, maybe some more anti-ship missiles, air defense systems, and maybe this is more significant, announcing the distribution of guns and ammo to the citizens.
Mm-hmm. Well, that says like guerrilla war, you know. I mean,
that's street by street.
Well, that's anticipation of you trying a decapitation strike or whatever, and you can't just, obviously you're going to need, you're going to have to prep the ground before that. So you go in and you somehow take out Maduro and the people around him, whatever, and then you've got this stupid, what's her name, Machado or whatever. Machado woman, who's going to, be installed by force, along with a bunch of her henchmen, and you're going to have some paramilitaries or something like that. So for that scenario, then you would have popular mobilization of people in the streets, Maduro supporters, who would then basically turn it into a civil war. So that's a threat. With him doing that is signaling that.
If you want to take this, I'll wreck it for you first.
Well, you're going to have to fight ordinary Venezuelans. You're going to have to. It's going to be a protracted, years-long civil war. Is that what you want? Because you're not getting a quick strike. Like, you're not going to get a quick coup and a quick change of regime.
And even she
said that idiot. Like, I think they're going to put her in. She's talked to who's she talking to? Somebody in the media.
American journalist.
Yeah, she basically said that she would welcome. She would welcome U.S. strikes on Venezuela.
If the Nobel Peace Prize winner,
if it gets rid of Maduro. Imagine being a Venezuelan and saying that you would welcome America bombing your country. And she thinks she's going to be president?
Yeah.
If you believe hard enough. Pray to Yahweh. Yeah. So, yeah, and it's about, like we said, it's about the oil, it's about the America's near abroad. It's clear evidence of Trump having a reality check. As detached as he is from reality, or as uninformed as he is about reality, he's at least still has become aware over the past 6 months that, things aren't the way they used to be. And if he wants to be the peace president, he can't go around and do the same thing as the neocons and the neoliberals did before him. and he can't do that anyway because other countries have the ability to push back militarily now, so he's forced into accepting some kind of a multipolarity, but he's going to leverage as much of the edifice of the American empire as possible in order to get as much out of his share of the multipolar world as possible. And that includes also focusing on the near abroad, making sure that Russia, China, whoever else aren't sneaking in the back door type thing. You know what I mean? Like, this is...
Well, they already have in Venezuela. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Maduro, it's a Chavez thing too. It's 20 years in the making.
Right.
The extent of Chinese and Russian cooperation with Venezuela. Do you wonder if that increasing urgency or concern with quote unquote securing Venezuela for us, especially because of the oil, it's its number one. It's Venezuela's oil reserves the biggest, highest in the world, based on the type it is, crude or something.
Well, based on just
availability,
just on volume, not on quality or anything like that. But obviously, it's still significant. Yeah.
Do you wonder if the urgency for securing that speaks to a doubt or concern that the Middle East may not be as secure as it seems? It seems absolutely like they've got, and they here is the US and Israel together, have just got the Middle East locked down. I mean, they've got everything they wanted since October 7th, smacked Iran back for now. Maybe there's going to be round 2, demolished Hezbollah leadership anyway. It just looks like it's all systems go, 7-nation war. We're winning on all fronts. We've got it locked down. As RFK said, our beachhead in the Middle East is secure because it's the world's energy spigot. That should speak to a level of confidence that for the foreseeable decades, we, together with Israel, well, not really Israel, we and Israel as the justification maintain influence over the oil sheiks as to how the distribution of the world's resources go. And yet, the confidence that you would expect to be there seems undermined by the concern to secure the oil over here in Venezuela, because we're not fucking sure what's about to happen here.
Well, I don't know if it's not sure about the Middle East, but it's more about the potential for Russia and China to start developing Venezuela's oil resources.
Okay,
because they're largely
under their nose.
They're largely untapped and in their backyard.
And we did cover,
because like the whole point about Venezuela is that Venezuela has been kept down in terms of being an oil producer and all that kind of stuff. It's like there's too many
kept
kids
in reserve for development later when we get this regime sorted out.
Right now, there's too many kids in the block type thing. We've got enough. We don't need you, and we don't need you interfering. We don't know which way you would go, basically. So we're going to keep you. We don't want you turning into a major oil producer and the wealth that brings. We don't want you turn into a Saudi Arabia of Latin America, unless we're sure about which way who you're going to be aligned with. And obviously, under Chavez and Maduro, definitely not with America. So that's why they have to go. That's why no matter, even if Maduro has said, come in and develop our oil, it's like, no, it's like ideologically we have a problem with you. You have to go. It doesn't matter how much you offer us. We would never be able to trust you. We need someone we trust. We need basically one of our own in that position who would give us full access to all of it, basically. And that we could be sure would not be double dealing, basically.
That reminds me, we noticed in a show about a month ago when Venezuela came back in the news, began firing at drugs, boats and stuff and smuggling it, but they've now hit 14 ships. Before that series of strikes started, we realized in hindsight there were 2 quiet developments in late August of massive Chinese investment in oil extraction and oil refining in Venezuela. One of them was a new mega deal, and the other one was one that had already been signed years ago and had just turned operational in late August. And then, boom, we're smacking Venezuela for drugs. It's the most transparently war for oil since Iraq.
Yeah. It's Trump's Iraq war. It could turn into that, but like I think he'll get cold feet ultimately. You know what I mean?
Because he's a softie, or because
Because he doesn't want to embroil himself. I mean, he's very, one of
his legacy conscious.
Yeah, for sure. A major pillar of his campaign, all that kind of stuff, with no more wars and not starting any more wars, but at the same time making America great again. And those two historically are mutually they're incompatible. You can't really not start wars and keep America great, So he's trying to figure out a way to do both, and I don't think it's possible. So we'll see. But on Ukraine, that's an example of also what we're talking about. Like, Ukraine is obviously Trump's war. As much as he says it's Biden's war and all that kind of stuff, it's obviously now Trump's war in the sense that Trump is not actually stopping it. He's not just pulling out. But that's from geopolitical considerations. It's like, why would I back away from this when there's something to be had from it with minimal investment, or just like continuing on with a few adjustments, continuing on what has already been 3 years in the 3 years started, 3 years down the line, 3.5 years down the line. Yeah. There's no point. It wouldn't make any sense economically, or from America's interest point of view. It wouldn't make any sense for him to just walk away and say, okay, I can end the war now by no more weapons for Ukraine. Especially with the adjustment being that he's no longer giving weapons to Ukraine, but the Europeans are buying and paying him cold hard cash for the weapons. And that's like, well, that's right, there's a benefit. Like, how could I turn that down? Like, there's a war going on that can service our military industrial complex. And of course, the military, the weapons manufacturers in America, who employ an awful lot of people, need to make some money, right? Wars are good because you think about it, like, I mean, you buy an orange from the store, an apple from the store, you eat it, and the next day you go and get another one, right? Mm-hmm. You buy a bomb from Raytheon, mm-hmm. and you put it in your cupboard until the day comes when you might need it. Might be today, might be tomorrow, might be in 10 years. Meanwhile, Raytheon are like twiddling their fucking thumbs going, you're going to buy another one any point in time? Any chance? So obviously, usage of the weapons that arms manufacturers make is a prerequisite for their continued economic economic solvency.
It's still a choice. China has a rule: they don't send weapons to war zones.
Yeah.
How precisely do they stick to that?
Yeah,
is open for debate. But
but they don't have to. They're making everything else
because
for the entire world.
They can get rich making other stuff.
Because
so the Americans don't have to get rich making war.
Well, they do, because China's making too much stuff. That's what Trump's trying to do. Start buying more of our stuff. We're buying all your stuff. You need to buy our stuff. I'm putting tariffs on all your products. I don't want to buy all your stuff. I want to kickstart American manufacturing. I want to be like China, so I don't have to sell weapons.
Make bombs.
So I don't have to make weapons.
Trump's tired of making bombs.
Well, that's what he thinks. But, the world's already been divided up. He doesn't realize. I mean, he does realize maybe, but the fact of the matter is the world has already stabilized out into who makes what and whose forte is what. And America's forte is making weapons and bombing everybody into submission.
Yeah.
That's what America is today and what it's built on. That's its legacy. That's the last at least 80 years. That's what America did to become what America is today.
Well, I'm an idealist and I want to change it around.
You want to switch it all up?
Yeah.
Well, switch the entire world up. So
yeah,
America's going to switch it up. So you got to get the Chinese to switch theirs up then. What are you going to do? Tariff them, right? Tariffs. China's making way too much. We need to be making some of the stuff that China's making. We're buying all that stuff from China. We don't want to do that. We want to make it here, so we're not going to buy their stuff. How are you going to stop buying their stuff? Tariffs. Blunt force instrument. And then make a really good deal based on that threat. Somehow, and then at the end it's all, and as long as you talk it up and everybody believes you, maybe you can keep the whole thing limping along for a while. But anyway, so Ukraine, Ukraine war still going. Obviously, Trump has decided there's no point in just walking away or the people behind him. I mean, obviously, arms manufacturers are lobbying hard for keeping that going because there's a lot of, he just said Europe's going to spend, hundreds of billions of dollars on American weapons over the next X number of years. So
800 billion if Ursula gets away.
Supposedly, yeah. So we're not going to look that gift horse in the mouth, right? We're not just going to end that. American jobs depend on it not ending. But we have to balance it out and not go too far and not start a nuclear war or whatever with Russia. Meanwhile, Russia's just grinding on in the Donbass, particularly of late in the city or town of Pokrovsk, in the Donbass, near on the edge of the Donbass. Is kind of one of the last major towns, and it's kind of significant because what's interesting is it's like they've established one of these cauldrons, basically, will have been circled up to maybe 10,000 Ukrainian troops. And this week, Putin said, look, we can bring in media representatives from international media, etc., to see what's going on. So we can bring some light to this. It's almost like Putin was lobbying the world or the governments and the international media on behalf of Ukrainian soldiers in order to try and save them, in order to try and save their lives, in the context of the Ukrainian government trying to shut him, to basically sacrifice them. That the Ukrainian government doesn't give a shit and just is going to turn a blind eye to it. Yeah. And Putin's like, look, this is all, there's a really serious situation here that technically should be international news. You know what I mean? There's 10,000 troops all in one cauldron who could be destroyed in one day.
And normally there's a timeout, a parley, and you try and let them...
Right, and he offered that as well. Except Zelensky turns around and goes, that's all bullshit. He's lying. That's
not happening.
It's not happening at all. We're winning. And, but it doesn't make any... The evidence, it argues against the Ukrainian narrative, because they sent in 2 Hueys, basically Black Hawk helicopters.
I saw that video
of special forces, basically. And the only time, it doesn't make any sense that in that context they would send in special forces to do what? They're not going to make any difference when you're talking about 10,000 soldiers and X thousand Russian soldiers who have been, the Russians have been progressively taking over this town for the past few weeks. And the Ukrainians, 10,000 Ukrainians in that town who were attempting to defend it, are now in the bullseye, basically. They're encircled. And you send in maybe 2 helicopters with 8 or 10 special forces troops. What are they going to do? They're going to turn the tide or something like that? No, that was a rescue operation. That was basically to go in and extract higher level,
maybe foreign
commanders or foreigners who were involved to extract, because obviously foreigners, especially if they're
still listed,
mercenaries and all that kind of stuff,
or if they're still actually
either still listed but mercenaries with some clout, with money to pay for it or whatever, or some connections, wanted to get their ass out of there before something bad happened. But the end result was that those 2 helicopters were destroyed and all the troops on them. The extraction team was actually destroyed. So,
and they weren't destroyed by the helicopter being bombed. They were destroyed. They were picked off by drones one by one. Which is phenomenal.
But it shows that it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? It was a suicide mission. You know what I mean? It was ridiculous. But the Ukrainians have been doing that anyway. So it's a bit weird that they would do that. Like I said, a handful of special force troops were not going to change the course of it. It had some other objective, and the only, the obvious thing was that it was some kind of an attempt to extract.
Did you hear someone suggest that, or is that your thinking?
No, because it's happened before in this war. Where they've gone in and tried to extract
on a crazy mission. I remember
trying to extract
Mariupol.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to rescue,
right?
Trying to get a French colonel. Supposedly.
Right, exactly. Right. So, so it's going pretty bad. I think we're getting to the point. I don't know for sure, but it looks like we could be getting to the fabled, much anticipated, long anticipated point where the Ukrainian military is getting to the point where it's near collapse in a certain sense. There's not enough manpower left
to hold up
to effectively
like a front.
To keep a defensive line going. Because over the past few years of the war, there was only really one major town per year that was taken by the Russians. You had Mariupol in the first year of the war, then Bakhmut was the second one, then Avdiivka, I think, in 2024, and this year. But this year's there've been several. There's obviously Pokrovsk, and there's several towns. There's another one, Mirnograd. There's another one close to there, Kupiansk, Seversk,
and they're back
Konstantinovka.
Liman looks like it's
Liman as well. So these are all being taken much more quickly by the Russians than before, which suggests that there isn't a capable defense force in most of the Ukrainians anymore. And the winter has always been, Russia has always made, despite the mud and all that kind of stuff and the rain, they've always had significant offensives during that period of time, which goes, you'd think there'd be a lull or delay, but I think they take advantage, or whatever, they have more manpower, whatever, but they take advantage of the fact that it's much more difficult for the Ukrainians as well, and they're able to actually achieve things during that muddy time of the year, so those those towns, those cities being taken so quickly could mean that the whole thing could collapse.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later, let's say. I mean, because it's been so dragged out. I mean, I'm not predicting anything imminent. Nothing imminent happens in that war, or nothing immediate ever happens. Although at a certain point something will happen, right? There will be some. I suppose there'll be some. When it ends, it'll end for a reason. It'll be something, but it may just be a slowly. The scale slowly, or the curtain slowly being drawn back on a Russian victory, But they've also been upping the Russians seem to be aware of the advantage that they have, that they're meeting much less, Russian forces are meeting much less resistance. They're able to take much more towns this year compared to last or previous years, and they've also been really hammering. Unlike previous years, hammering
Kiev,
not just Kiev, but the electrical grid across Ukraine, but including Kiev, like you said. And who knows? I mean, there may be. I mean, I think there was some official in Kiev suggested that people in Kiev actually leave the city in advance of winter, because the Russian attacks on the energy infrastructure have been so bad that there's definitely going to be long periods where there's not going to be any power.
Thus heating.
In Kiev. But not just heating, but sewage, water. I mean, it's not just that you don't have any lights. It's like your toilets don't work and you have no heating and you have no electricity and you can't cook it. You know what I mean? So living conditions become extremely bad. So who knows if that's part of the Russian strategy to try and force large scale evacuation? Because I think it was actually Ukrainian. I'll have to look it up, but I think it was actually some Ukrainian political, some official in the government, or maybe not in the government, but in Kiev anyway, made that suggestion. It wasn't a Russian. So mass exodus from Kiev, and then the Russians walk in or something. I don't know. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But the bottom line is, if there's no more, if the front line collapse, basically, if the Ukrainians don't have the ability to actually effectively defend, I mean, the front line, then it kind of is over, because at that point, the Russian army just, I mean, they're not going to charge across the country, but they'll be moving a lot faster, and if they're not meeting any resistance, they'll keep going. They'll definitely keep going, obviously, to the borders of Donbass, of Donetsk, but also maybe they'll, once that's, if they're able to secure the rest of the Donetsk, they'll move down to Kherson and over to Zaporizhia to try and take the rest of the other two regions.
Yeah.
But it's been such a long drawn out thing, it's hard to say anything definitive about it, But definitely, I think there is evidence there in the past few weeks that things are looking pretty bad, worse than they have done in previous years for the Ukrainian military. There's also stories about something like 800,000 Ukrainian fighting age males have left Ukraine, like bribed the way out of the country or whatever, but 800,000 have decided to leave.
Well, there was a strange law was passed where anyone 18 to 22 was free to leave, but 22 upwards had to stay.
Right.
And it didn't make sense. Suddenly they were not after young conscripts.
But that's the thing. If
Maybe he had to for political reasons.
Yeah, but it could also be that a lot of people that have left are the ones who officially didn't have to because they weren't subject to conscription that were below 22. But there's word on the street that because the manpower on the front line is so dire that they're going to lower the age of conscription to 18. And then, so if that's commonly known, then there'll be a lot of them. Mothers, parents would be getting their 18-year-old sons out of the country if they could in advance of such an announcement. Because I'm sure, if they did, that would be a death knell for. I think that would have to be the end of it for Zelensky. Like if he was to lower the conscription age to 18, that's nobody's going to be happy with that. Like nobody in Ukraine.
I don't know. Ukraine continues to surprise me with its
lack of resistance.
Yeah,
their apathy.
Yeah, I think because of it's to do with internal politics. The harsh conscription / penury, rationing, tangible, viscerally felt effects of the war, they seem to have tailored it so that the west of Ukraine doesn't get as much of that at all. In fact, they seem to be piping in lots of Euro living standards. Yeah. They're trying to acclimate Western Ukrainians to, this is what it's like to be free and in the European Union. It's a very different world to the center, east, and south, where they are feeling the heat. And those people tend to be Russian speakers or outright ethnic Russians. Kiev has no problem with them feeling all the effects because they're the ones the Russians are interested in fighting for and protecting and encouraging to revolt. Well, they can revolt against Kiev all they want, but they're the ones in penury and subject conscription. So there's a super diabolical internal dynamic that's part of why this war has been so messed up and gone on like it has.
Yeah, and I know it's kind of old news now, but it was the French government put a circular about prepare for war for next March or something like that.
Yeah, not
war. What did they say? Hospitals, doctors to prepare for beds
receiving foreign.
No French.
I think it was foreign soldiers.
Foreign Legion.
Casualties of foreign soldiers.
Yeah, or Foreign Legion soldiers. I think the French recently they've talked about the French have talked about sending their own troops in, but
Macron did it again this week.
Yeah, but he's probably talking about the Foreign Legion, most of whom are actually not French until they get French citizenship from actually being in the Foreign Legion. But most of them are not actually French, obviously. That's why they're called the Foreign Legion. But I think that would make sense in the context of demonizing Russia, because that's what the Europeans seem set upon, is to sour European political relationship with Russia for the foreseeable future. Obviously, that's the thing they've been on, and the Americans have been backing them and doing that for quite a long time. That seems to be an agenda to make it almost something that can never be come back from. It's been it'll last for a generation or more. This.
Well, they talk a good game of war.
Well, they can talk all they want, but I don't believe anything they say. Necessarily.
Well, the Russians aren't taking chances. I think that's why they announced the test of this Poseidon thing.
Yeah, but that was for America.
Okay.
That's for America. America is really the only one they have to, because, again, that would be not necessarily Trump, but people behind him, or who knows. You can't go through all the permutations and try and figure out, what it means or what it doesn't mean, or if it means that. You just go, look, if you're talking about, attacking Russia with long-range Tomahawk missiles that can carry a nuclear warhead, then we're going to respond in kind. We're just going to simplify it, I'm not going to sit here and go, well, what do you mean by that? Would you use Tomahawk cruise missiles? Let me go through all the permutations. Maybe you're just talking about non-nuclear Tomahawk cruise missiles, and maybe you wouldn't use them to actually hit the Kremlin. And so, yeah, I'm going to assume that you're just kind of talking things up. You're just blustering a little bit and stuff, and so we won't say anything. response. No, I mean,
no, that's what my point is simply that Russia is continuing, like you said earlier, down the road it was already set on, as if it's assuming the end stage outcome of this is some kind of hot conflict.
No,
the US /
but they're not assuming that. That's what I'm saying. They're not assuming that. It's like when you're faced with a situation where, if I don't want to have to, if I don't know anything about you, and I don't know if you've got a gun, a knife, if you've got a knife, or if you've got knuckle dusters or a knife or a gun or a bazooka, or you're hiding a tank behind that tree or whatever, But all I'm saying is that you're showing some aggressive pose towards me, and I could try and say, well, what are you trying to get me to do? Are you just bluffing? Do you have these weapons? Don't you have these weapons? Am I going to take the lowest common denominator? No, I'm not going to go through all this permutation and try and figure out, because it's like, it's just like too complicated, and it's a waste of my time. I'm just going to go to the most likely, or sorry, the most extreme known capability that you have, and I'm going to match that straight away. I'm just going to cut through all the bullshit. That doesn't mean that I'm threatening you with nuclear weapons. I'm just saying that since I know that you have nuclear weapons, and since you're clearly being aggressive towards me, I'm going to assume that you could, in potential, potentially be threatening me with nuclear weapons. Therefore, I'm going to simply go to that end result right there, and so we'll end all the debate, and we all know where we stand. I can push you back straight away. I'm assuming that you might be threatening me with nukes. I'm going to remind you that I have nukes as well. No, I'm not saying you're going to use them. I'm definitely not saying I'm using them. I'm just reminding you that that's what I have. Now we can move on. Everybody can calm down and stop trying to psychoanalyze each other and stop trying to do kind of game theory with each other and figure out who's doing what or what. Let's just leave it at that. So,
that's very well put. You should be a Russian spokesperson.
Well, that's what they're doing.
The critics would say that this is what we're doing here, but
no, but that's what the Russians are obviously doing. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's when they do that. That's what I mean, and it shouldn't be taken as the Russians actually threatening to.
Yeah, although Dmitry does sometimes.
Dmitry's allowed to do that let him off the leash now and again and let him talk shit. He has to vent, It's glad there's somebody in Russia who can talk the West language, which is, well, not talk their language, but call out their bullshit. Like, because how could you not, But I think
it's almost a separate conversation then from Ukraine and the denouement of the local situation.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a separate track.
Except part of the reason this whole thing started was because America tried to do the whole keep Germany in, keep Germany in, Germany down, the Russians out, and
the Brits in,
and NATO, or the Europeans in, or whatever. Basically, keep NATO. Keep Europe for America away from Russia, and this is just a playing out of that policy that goes back 80 years, right? It hasn't changed, which is why it's so boring.
It's even more interesting than that. This is the peak, the tail end of the British Empire. Lord Hastings Lionel Ismay was NATO's first Secretary General. He said, keep the Soviet Union, so Russia, out,
right? The
Americans in,
right?
And the Germans down.
Yes.
So that's obviously
Eurocentric.
Have to be adapted now for the US.
For Anglo-America, the Atlanticism, Anglo-American perspective, which is, but obviously the Americans took on that mantle and adopted it, and obviously, followed up on it, and they had the policy of keeping Europe for America, keep Europe away from Russia, keep Russia out of Europe, and keep Europe in the Atlantic Alliance.
Yeah,
and
we still have an echo of that today, though. The Americans in, because
for sure.
There's Trump.
That's what the Europeans are doing. Yeah,
that really controls.
That's only because of Trump.
Trump and NATO.
But that's only because of Trump.
Don't leave us.
Yeah,
keep the Americans in.
Yeah. They've had to do that. Yeah. But the French basically talking about the reason we have this conflict in Ukraine is because of that policy of trying to keep Europe on America's side or on the Western, in the Western alliance, stop it falling to Russia, keep Russia out, basically. And if you're going to keep Russia out, if that's your policy, then you're also going to have to make it more belligerent and more aggressive and stuff. And eventually, you're going to take over Ukraine, and you're going to provoke Russia to invade Ukraine and make some money out of that conflict, because war is always good for the warmongers and the arms manufacturers. And then long term, it's not just about, there's an attempt, obviously, to sour, like I said, the relationship between Russia and European countries, to make Russia such a pariah that it'll be cast out, at least from the West, from the Western sphere of influence, and there'll be no rapprochement with European countries for a generation, because it's been so horrible, and Putin's been such a baby killer, and it's just, things have gone so bad. And as a means to actually kind of try and lock that in, there's only one step further from where they've gone so far. Obviously, they've all sorts of demonization, and they've got, I don't know how many people in Europe all saying Putin's a very bad man and Russia's evil, etc. So, but you can make that more real. You can lock that in a little bit tighter by having some French, German, Polish, whoever, soldiers come home in body bags, killed by Russians. I mean, that makes it a bit more real for people, because so far it's all been hush-hush, and no, we don't have any soldiers there, even though they do have troops there under mercenary guise and all that kind of stuff. But if you really want to double down on it and, like I said, lock it in, you would actually have find some way to finagle regular French or German or Polish or whoever troops into Ukraine, have some kind of put them in harm's way, have them killed, have them brought home in body bags with the French tricolour or the Polish flag or the German flag over them, and then each of those countries' citizens would be
history books written where this went down as the great Euro-Russian war of blah.
And you would have,
but you want to control it, because you don't want
too many. You don't want to be blamed for it, but
you don't want to be losing either.
No,
lose a little bit,
but you're trying to solidify within the within the people's mind, or popular opinion, that Russia killed my brothers, killed our soldiers.
Yeah.
We were at war with Russia. I saw the body bags coming home, if you wanted to really, try and make it a reality at the level of the popular opinion. Because right now, sure, a lot of people in Europe might say that Putin, but there's probably a lot of people who have a more nuanced perspective on it, a bit more, understand it's a bit more complex than that, and think, to the extent that they don't trust their government, or think their government are a bunch of bullshitters, So,
but Joe, President Macron and Chancellor Merz would never sacrifice some of their own soldiers just for optics.
No. Well, all right then, if you say so.
Right.
Yeah, well, presidents and prime ministers have never done that, have they? You don't do that to soldiers.
They're not so cynical.
Yeah, I wish. So, is that it?
That's it.
Somebody told me that you sound like an owl.
Yeah, I've heard that too. An owl what? An owl
bogger. No. Yeah.
That's it. That's the joke. What's the punchline?
No, you're meant to ask me. We'll start again. Somebody told me that you sound like an owl.
Who did? Hoot hoot. Who?
So there you go. Had to extract that one out of you.
Yeah. It's not easy to go to like
from serious talk to like jokey talk.
Geopolitical, game theory analysis, permutations. My head at the end of one of your talks is like, huh. And then you switch into the joke, and I'm supposed to get the punchline. No chance.
Need some downtime to switch track. All right, yeah. So time flies when you're rambling on. So we'll leave it there for this week, folks. Thanks for listening, watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week with another one on whatever bullshit has been going on between now and then. So until then, have a good week. See ya.
Bye, all. Till next time.
Can't stop the signal now.